Hey guys, I'm the Comics Kid 2099, and I wanted to talk to you about a book that I read last night, The Hulk, Return of the Monster. Now this is a gigantic book, and if you go on Amazon or eBay and you type in Return of the Monster, you're going to get a couple of different things pop up. In 2002, there was a paperback printing of that story, which was like 4 or 5 issues long, and then in 2012, there was a hardcover printing of that story, and then you have this. I don't know when this was printed. This is actually like 3 stories, so it collects, let's see, what were they? Let me just look so that I don't get it wrong. It collects Return of the Monster, which is issue 34 through 39, Boiling Point, 40 through 43, and then a 4-issue miniseries called Banner, written by Brian Azzarello and Richard Corbin. And the rest of this book is by Bruce Jones, and then the Return of the Monster is drawn by John Romita Jr., and then the other one is drawn by Lee Weeks. So that is the creative lineup as it is, and the reason I read this, didn't draw it, read it, you may have saw on my Facebook page recently, I mentioned that I'm going to be rereading the Bruce Jones run on The Incredible Hulk. And this is the first 2 stories of that, in addition to the 4-issue Banner miniseries. And the thing is, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Banner miniseries. It's a decent miniseries. Basically, as I understand it, it's not supposed to be part of the Marvel Universe, which is a little confusing because it's not. If it's not supposed to be part of the Marvel Universe, then why is it collected in this big book where the other 2/3 of it are set in the Marvel Universe? Let me go ahead and find that little page, because right before this Banner miniseries starts, it has a page that says, that was what could have been, as in, you know, the rest of the book. Or that's what is, this is what could have been, implying that this Banner miniseries, it doesn't count. It's not part of the Marvel Universe. It says, that is what is, this is what could have been. And so, it's a little bit disjointing. It's a little bit disjarring whenever, you read this much of the book, which is all part of one very long run, which if you're getting it in paperback, it's like 8 trade paperbacks collect Bruce Jones's run, and then they do something that has really nothing to do with Bruce Jones's run at all. And what makes matters worse, because this is not set in the Marvel Universe, you have Doc Samson showing up in Bruce Jones's run, and he acts entirely different when he shows up in the Banner miniseries. Doc Samson is almost a supervillain in the Banner miniseries. He is a jerk. He is not really a nice guy. He sacrifices human lives to try and stop the Hulk. It's really disjarring when you've got this guy who's a pretty nice guy in the Bruce Jones stuff, and then when you get to the Brian Azzarello stuff, he's borderline psychotic. And that's a little troubling for me. And I think if this was by itself, if I saw the Banner miniseries as its own trade paperback and I read it, I think that would be much less of a problem. Now, I still wouldn't necessarily care for the way that Doc Samson was being handled in that story, but it wouldn't be as much of a problem since it wouldn't be included in a story where Doc Samson acts entirely differently. So, that's one thing to keep in mind. If you happen to get this big hardcover version of this story, that's going to be something that's going to happen, is that you're going to have these 2 stories that handle these characters. Wow, sorry, that fell. I was worried that was going to happen, and it did. No editing, this is just raw footage. So that's going to happen. If you read this, then you're going to have the Bruce Jones stuff that's going to feel entirely different than the Brian Azzarello stuff, because they're by 2 different people. Other than that, talking about the Bruce Jones stuff, it's pretty good. It's basically, you know how everyone in the world, when they think of the Hulk, they're really thinking of the the Bill Bixby, David Ferrigno, wow, I am completely awful today, the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno series from the 70s and 80s. They're thinking of that when they think of the Hulk. They're thinking of this scientist who's down on his luck. He's always traveling, he's always using aliases, he's always kind of doing good wherever he goes. Each episode is standalone, and he's just kind of doing stuff, helping people as the Hulk, and then he moves on to the next city. people think of that as the default Hulk status quo. And the thing is, that's really not as much of the Hulk status quo as you would think, because there's been a significant amount of the Hulk's history where that has not been part of his thing, where he's not on the run, or the Hulk is not a savage monster like that. That's not really as much of the Hulk's history as you might think. Well, this is exactly that. This is, he's on the run. It appears that he has been framed for the murder of a little boy. The Hulk was rampaging, and apparently this little boy died, and everyone is trying to capture him. Everyone's familiar with the name of Bruce Banner. They're all like, yeah, if I had that guy in my sights, I'd kill him. And it turns out Bruce did not kill the little boy. That's a little bit of a spoiler, but whatever. And this whole thing, this is one of those runs on a series where you really need to read all of it together. You really don't need to read, say, just the Boiling Point story or just the Return of the Monster story, because while that will, in theory, kind of stand on its own, really it's all building up on each other. There's a lot of mysteries set up in this book that are not answered right away, and they will be answered on down the line, but there's a lot of stuff going on here that is only going to make more sense if you read the rest of the Bruce Jones run, which is what I intend to do. But if you picked up, say, this hardcover that I have, and you're wanting just a standalone story that makes sense by itself, you're not really going to get that, because really, instead of this being its own story, this is like chapter 1 of a 4-part story or something like that, because the rest of Bruce Jones's run was, I think, there were 8 trade paperbacks in total, and this collects 2 of them, and then the next hardcover I have collects 2 of them, and then after that I've got the other 4 paperbacks. So this is really just like chapters 1 and 2 of an 8-part story, and you really need to read all 8 parts to get the complete story. And if that's something that aggravates you, it does aggravate me quite often, then you might want to keep that in mind. The only reason it doesn't aggravate me here is because I have the complete story, so I'm not having to worry about getting the rest of the story when I already have it all here. I thought this was a pretty good book. I like the art. Usually, see, in the past, I've not really been a huge fan of John Romita Jr. I think I've kind of cooled on him in recent years. I'm still not a gigantic fan, but I don't hate his art as much as I used to. It's pretty decent here, and then Lee Weeks is pretty good. At times, it feels like Weeks is trying to channel John Romita Jr., but he's got his own thing going on. And then if you read the Banner miniseries, Richard Corbin, his art is kind of hit or miss with me. By the time you're done reading issue 4, you will have gotten used to it, but it's very jarring when you go from Lee Weeks to Richard Corbin. And Corbin's art is a little sketchy for me. I'm gonna fall on the I don't really care for it, but I don't hate it. It's just not my cup of tea, and so I'm assuming there's other people out there who it's not their cup of tea either. That's about all I have to say. I like this book, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of his run. I will probably be talking about the rest of his run in future videos. So, until then, I will see you guys later. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Catch you then.